Hello there, welcome to another beer Ritz mixed case tasting video. I'm actually hiding out in the shop in the shop cellar in Headingley here. As you can see, the ceiling really is that low. The beers that we've got this week, they're from a brewery on Orkney called the Highland Brewing Company, and they're a really nice mix of kind of classic British styled ales with kind of contemporary brewing techniques. What I really love about their beers is that they've managed to cram a really kind of bright hop character into all of their beers. Now Rob Hill, the brewer there, he's an interesting chap. He's worked at various breweries. He used to brew at Morehouses, and I first met him a few years ago. He popped in and he was telling me very excitedly about a fantastic old brew plant that he found that he wanted to buy and install in his brewery in Orkney. And Rob being Rob, the brewery, the plant that he'd found was actually in an old brewery on one of the Channel Islands. So he'd set himself quite a task there to move that brewery from one end of the British Isles to the other. But not only that, in between the brewery being installed in the building and him wanting to buy it, the building had actually become listed, which is a bit of a problem because to get the brewery in, they had to take part of the building down. Now obviously the building is listed, which means they can't get the new brew plant back out to sell it to anyone. So as far as I know, that brew plant is still in the brewery on one of the Channel Islands. And Rob Hill and his son Lewis are running the Highland Brewing Company with a brewing plant that is actually, you know, even though if it's not the one he wants, it's still doing him a really good job. So we're going to try three of the 6 beers here. We're going to try the Orkney Best, that's their sort of session beer, the St Magnus Ale, that's a kind of a best bitter I guess, and then Orkney Blast, that's a much sort of stronger beer. Orkney Best is they describe it as a world-class light ale with commendable lack of modesty. They append the words world-class to quite a lot of their beers, but actually I think that's justified. You can see it's a lovely golden colour there, and a really bright, kind of fresh, sappy malt character to the nose. And there's a really sort of light citrus and floral thing going on. It's great. It's rounded, it's soft. There's just enough kind of pale malt presence there to give it some body. There's just enough hop to keep it sort of dry and a little bit tingly at the end, just to give it enough interest. As I say, a classic session ale. Session ales obviously are lower gravity beers. They tend to be pale, they tend to be low in alcohol. The idea is that you can have a bit of a session on them. You can drink 2 or 3 without feeling too many ill effects the next day. Not that I'm advocating drinking to excess every night. That's lovely, fresh, full body, but just not too full, not too cloying. The second beer, St Magnus Ale, it's their premium beer. They describe it as a world-class premium beer. There's those words again. Slightly darker, sort of more coppery colour, a little bit of crystal malt in there. And you're getting that there's a little bit more kind of caramel and a very sort of slight faint suggestion of it's caramel and almost like a little bit of chocolate on the nose. And so, as opposed to the Orkney Best, the really light, drinkable session beer, this is a little bit more structured. It's a little bit more chewy, a little bit more grown up, and there's a little bit more bitterness in the finish as well. There's a lovely kind of full-bodied maltiness to it, but again it's kept really light and fresh and bright with the use of hops. And Rob was talking to me about his hopping regime. He won't tell me exactly what he does because, you know, all brewers like to do things slightly differently. But he said he's got a special mash regime for his hops, whereby he feels that he gets a really interesting and fresh hop character into his beers that nobody else has. And, you know, I'm not going to say whether that's true or not. I guess that's up for the consumer to decide. But what I do think is that the hop character in these beers treads a really nice balance between kind of classic British styled ales and that sort of new wave of American influenced craft brewing, British craft brewing. We'll just finish that off. It's nice, it's very drinkable, like I say, a little bit more chewy, a little bit more grown up, a little bit more grip in the mouth. Having to duck down because of this ridiculous ceiling. So the third beer we're going to try, Orkney Blast. They describe it unsurprisingly as a world-class strong ale, and I think it's brilliant. It is a strong ale. It's 6% alcohol, so it's not really. It's kind of the opposite of a session ale. This is the sort of thing that maybe you only really want to drink one a night of. And it's just you're really starting to get a sense of the. You don't really smell the alcohol, but there's a lot of body coming out of the glass. The aroma is quite big and quite full, and again, kind of fresh, fruity and floral. And again, bigger, chewier. Not really in a grippy way, but you kind of get the sense that there's much more going on in the mouth. You're sort of getting a suggestion of alcohol warmth as well, which is probably a good thing. That's not to say this is hot. You don't drink it and think, oh my god, that's so full of alcohol. But you do get a suggestion that the alcohol in this beer is much, much higher than the previous two. It's 6% alcohol. But big, the pale malt just giving it a real full body, but it's a full body without too much kind of clumpiness going on there. And again, the hopping regime just really, really bright, fresh. It's, you know, if you didn't know the beer was 6% alcohol, you might accidentally drink more of it than you should, heaven forbid. So I'm going to finish this one off now, and I'm going to duck down to avoid the ceiling. But what I think about these beers is that as a range of beers, they represent, you know, some of the best techniques going on in British brewing at the moment. As I keep saying, traditional British sort of techniques with sort of new wave hopping going on there, and I think they're fantastic. The three that we haven't tried, the Scarpa, the Orkney IPA, very, very good beers in their own right. The Orkney Porter there, they put it in nip bottles, and nip is a legally defined measure. It's a third of a pint, and it's a very strong dark ale. It's 9% alcohol. We're not going to open that just because we're just not going to try it now. But I have tried it in the past. I've tried fresh bottles and I've tried aged bottles, and what I do think is that it's very, very good fresh, and it also ages very well indeed. But that's one for a colder, darker evening than today. So there we have it. Highland Brewing Company. That's their range of beers. I'm going to mix a case and suggest that you buy them. I hope you enjoy them. I think they're great beers, and I think you're going to enjoy them if you do. Right, we'll see you next time. Cheers now.